Hey, Scott, it's Friday. It's time for another transformation conversation. This is actually our first one for 2022. We've been busy updating our product roadmap. We're getting ready to take digital commercial engagement to the next level, and more to come on that later, but exciting times. But this is episode one, and today we're going to deal with what we're calling growing pains, leveraging automation to create scale. So Scott, let's kind of kick it off with, what do you think the best approach is to process automation?
Well, happy Friday. I've got my Aloha Friday shirt on.
There you go. There you go.
Jumping in, sorry, I'll segue. So process automation, uh, it's really all about flexibility. Work processes they're not rigid in the real world, although we like to think of them this way because it simplifies the solution. So a good example of this is probably customer interaction, right? White glove services, it's all about processing with exceptions, right? Because, we want to ensure our customers are getting what they need under unique circumstances. And that always can't be perfectly set up and aligned. And when you try to put process in place that's too rigid, things can start falling apart. Another critical component is integration. So identifying integration opportunities and being able to leverage new capabilities like APIs or even existing RPAs, that's critical to the automation approach. Keep in mind too that it's an elephant, right? So being able to take bite sizes versus doing this big bang, that's going to facilitate adoption and accelerate the overall return on your investment.
That's great. I think that's really insightful. So how do you assess the potential benefits and risks of new technology?
Well, technology, it should never be seen or heard. It's supposed to be running under the covers, right? And so, technology, while it's the underpinning of a successful product. So over the past couple of years, there's a lot of marketing and push on technology. It's kind of diminished a bit the focus on product, because technology alone is a tool whereby the product itself is a solution. Selling wholesale APIs is a good example of this, right? What do you do with an API? It just simply can't exist on its own. So when you weigh the technology benefits, ensure that it's an entire solution versus piecemeal tool that you will, inevitably it's going to accelerate the costs and potentially provide a very unclear benefit. You also need to consider the risks when it comes to managing a new technology. So companies that develop with these technologies at times struggle to manage tech. As we've seen in the past, financial institutions have complexities that can actually exacerbate this challenge.
Great, that's true. And so we've talked about process automation. We've talked about assessing technology. I think the last and probably the most critical component is integration, right? And integration seems to me to be the highest risk and yet the greatest return in any automation project. So I guess in terms of managing that again, risk and opportunity, do you think that an integration analysis in advance of starting a project can assist in evaluating what the project's scope is, what the expectations should be in terms of level of effort and time?
Oh, for sure. Right. As I mentioned before, leveraging integrations is critical to automation. Understanding what is possible not only enables you to understand the cost, but it can help you prioritize positive impact and potentially phased approach methodologies. There's also a risk on negative returns based on the complexity of an integration. So, that's kind of that eyes wide open. I think it's very critical to the approach. Why automate if you're really not going to get that level of return? Keep in mind that all of this, as we talk through these things, you really want a capable vendor helping with the analysis. One that understands both the technology, but also the core domain problem, which is banking.
Sure. And in talking to a number of banks, you frequently hear that, they put in a solution, they did the integration, but it's underperforming for some reason. And I think that kind of transitions us over to some of the business considerations. You'd agree with that, wouldn't you?
I would agree, and I think it'd be great to get some of your business perspective on, how should fintech solutions be evaluated? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, I think there are some best practices, some things that I've done over the last several years, and I think seem to help in terms of really evaluating solutions. I think really the first is before you even start talking to any vendors or looking at any internal development is to describe an ideal solution. Because I think that our natural tendency is to try to fit ourselves into a solution we happen to be looking at. And you start compromising your own requirements if you do that. And to that point, I think you have to document minimum acceptable requirements again before you start looking at solutions, so that you have some point of reference for that solution. You have to look at what that vendor solution is in terms of out of the box functionality. With a lot of customization and professional services and expense and time, you can do anything. But the question is, what's the starting point? What do you get out of the box? You have to look at the solution as being either fixed or static, if you will, versus flexible or dynamic. How easy is it to move with you as your requirements change or things shift in terms of your operating model? You have to carefully plan out the project and provide adequate resources, set the proper expectations, define in advance what constitutes success in that project. And finally, apply an agile development process and monitor that weekly, so that you don't hit a critical milestone and find out that it didn't go the way you expected. So I think in general, I think we've covered off the technology, the automation, the integration, and some business considerations. Hopefully, that's provided you all with some things to think about. If you're watching this on LinkedIn, please feel free to leave comments. If you're looking at it on our blog, which is prolificbanking.com, again, please feel free to comment there. We'll be back next week with our next episode. Thank you so much for watching, and have a great weekend. Thanks so much, and thank you, Scott.
Take care.